Hey everyone, how's it going? It is Max with BuzzTox, and I'm finally back because a new teaser trailer has dropped for the new Game of Thrones spinoff, House of the Dragon. And I have to say, after watching this teaser, I am extremely excited. It looks incredible, and it's so nice to see the Game of Thrones world again. And this time around, I'm very excited because unlike Game of Thrones, this story actually has a beginning, middle, and an end. The writers for this show know where it's going. And if you know the story of the Dance of Dragons, you know it is very satisfying. It is a great story. It's about a civil war between House Targaryen, and it basically results in the house being crippled. To give you some context, this story starts off with King Viserys. He has a wife, he has a couple kids, and then he marries a woman named Alicent Hightower, and he ends up having children with her. So you have two different groups of Targaryen children, the Blacks and the Greens. And when the king dies, they end up coming at each other's throats, and a war ensues. And the first thing I want to touch off with this teaser trailer, which is amazing, is this takes place across multiple timelines. This Targaryen civil war didn't just start overnight. It took a couple decades for it to really come to fruition. And that's these scenes here. We see young Princess Rhaenyra, the daughter of the king. And then this king right here, King Viserys, ends up marrying Alicent Hightower. She is the daughter of a man named Otto Hightower, and he is the lord of a place that we know, Oldtown, where Sam goes to the Citadel. And not only does the king marry Alicent Hightower, he makes her father, Otto Hightower, the hand of the king, and we see that pin here. But before the Civil War actually starts, where I believe we're going to spend most of the time in the TV show, we're going to see some build-up, like this tournament. We've seen tournaments in Game of Thrones before, and this one will be no different. But this tournament is going to establish that there is division amongst the Targaryen line. I believe that this tournament is happening because the king is celebrating his 5th wedding anniversary to his wife, Alicent Hightower. And this is such a key point in history because Alicent Hightower wore a green dress, and the king's daughter from another mother, Rhaenyra Targaryen, wore a black and red dress. And this was the pinnacle moment in this tournament where there was a division amongst Targaryens, dividing them into blacks, which is Rhaenyra, and greens, which is the king and his new family. In this tournament also, I believe we're going to see Daemon Targaryen, and this is him right here. He's known to be an incredible swordsman, and he is the king's brother. And these bloodlines get so confusing, because not only is Daemon Targaryen the king's brother, he is also married to the king's daughter, Rhaenyra. So now that we have the history out of the way, basically 18 or so years pass, and Rhaenyra is with Daemon Targaryen at Dragonstone, and the king dies. And at this point, Queen Alicent tries to take power for herself, for the Green Targaryens. And this is where the story takes place. And we see Queen Alicent here. And I want to point out her name Alicent or Alicent, I'm not 100% sure. I will figure it out over time, but this is her with a knife. Tensions are a little heated. I believe this is the scene where the king is dead and some backstabbing and betraying happens to make sure that the message doesn't get out. They're trying to control the message that the king has died so they can quickly seize power. She wants to seize power for her children. She doesn't want her stepkids coming in and taking over the throne, even though the king prefers Rhaenyra to lead. And then we get a glimpse of Queen Rhaenyra. We see her on the shores of Dragonstone with her husband, Daemon Targaryen. And he's very encouraging. He wants her to go fight for the throne. And I believe that this scene is kind of the beginning of the show. Daemon and Rhaenyra kind of coming to terms with their conquest to take back the throne that belongs to them. And in that, we see Daemon going either under Dragonstone or in the caves of Dragonstone. And I believe he's going to go get his dragon. Because most Targaryens are riding dragons in this show. And his dragon is named Caraxes. And we also get a glimpse at another dragon. We see a bunch of candles and the silhouette of a dragon. Now, I don't know if this is at Dragonstone or at King's Landing, but I think it's safe to say that a dragon has died, and they're either paying their respects or it's a funeral type service. And I think we better get used to it because a lot of dragons are going to die in this show. And then we get a glimpse at the throne room, and I think this is before the conflict begins, but we see a new house that we haven't seen before, and this is House Valyrian. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it is. They come from Valyria. You had the Doom of Valyria that pushed Targaryens and that bloodline to Westeros. And this family lives on an island just off the coast of Dragonstone. And these people, this is Lord Corlys Velaryon and his wife and family, and they are supporters of the Black Targaryens. So it's pretty easy to remember the Black Targaryens support the Black Targaryens. And that's Rhaenyra Targaryen. And one thing I want to point out with the show that I'm really enjoying is I like how they're changing up the throne room. I love how they're making the throne look more like a callback to the books, where there's like a path of swords. But also it's nice to see them put in tables and hold events. It reminds me like Harry Potter with the Great Hall. But it's nice to see it more contextualized, because the throne room so far has been just like this cold, big hallway to the throne. And it's nice to see it populated. But all in all, this really got my hopes up for the show. I think with this show, it's going to complement the last series of Game of Thrones very well, because it's not going to flesh over the same stuff we've seen before. The last show was all about winter is coming, even though it didn't really come, but we spent a lot of time in Winterfell developing that. We spent a lot of time in King's Landing. And I feel like this show, we'll spend time in King's Landing, but we're going to see a whole lot more of Dragonstone. We're going to see a whole lot more of Old Town and the Citadel. We're going to see these places that were only hinted at or we only got a glimpse of in the last show. And also it's going to be really exciting seeing the dragons. In Game of Thrones, we built up to the magic. It ended with Daenerys hatching her dragons. But we didn't really see any magic. We saw the wall, we saw the world. But this time we're getting dragons right out the get-go. It's their normal way of life. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see, because it feels very much like Game of Thrones, but it also looks very different. But anyways, those are my thoughts on the Game of Thrones teaser. I am most definitely going to be covering this show in 2022. I also want to give some more information on BuzzTox. I am currently reading The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, because I am going to cover The Wheel of Time, which is coming out in November. So we'll see how that goes. Also, I apologize for not consistently putting up content. The problem is every time I sit down to do a video, I get motivated to want to work on my other projects. Some of you know that the Game of Thrones ending did not do well for me. A lot of people told me that my version and predictions were better, that I should just write a book. And I said, sure, I'll write a book. So I've been writing a book. And so far I've plotted the whole series itself, and now I'm writing the first book, or trying to plot out the details of the first book. So I apologize if I'm not putting up content as consistently. I'm trying to write a story, which is pretty daunting. But I'll give more information on that later. Thank you so much for sticking around, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.